Welcome, welcome to my lovely IHP community and the 5D collective. To anyone who's new, you might want to tune on in to our previous episode so you can understand where we're headed. But empowered feminines, empowered masculines, those are healthy, self-worth, empowered, mindfully living and loving, and some spiritually living and loving, and some mystics and some not people. Okay? I get to be the empowered feminine who lets you all know about the amazing journey of an empowered feminine. And when you have empowered masculines, they're on an amazing journey too. And in the meantime, from the focus of me being me to you being you, we're going to do something called, we don't do companionship. Excuse me. We do intimate and passionate relationships. We don't need Terry Real to be the middleman. We don't need a middleman, a middle woman, a middle anything. We're like, hey, I got a tail, Eric. What do you want? You don't like it? Oh, cool beans. Thank you so much. It's actively how it works. It doesn't matter how old you are. If you have a whole self and you own the sense of self and you got your 3-year-old, your 1-year-old, and you know how to be non-traumatized because you can self-regulate. Yes, in the prefrontal because you're anchored in your ventral energy because you know about an open heart and open gut and basically healthy self-worth. Hey, this is who I am. What do you want? Teenage boyfriend got the same spiel as everybody else. This is who I am. And as I got to get older, I got to realize that this is who you are. Well, I thought you would change. Huh? Excuse me? That's confusing. No, I thought you would change your mind. That's again, you're confusing me. So when you understand what it means to be yourself, here, let me explain it to you. You navigate life from your prefrontal cortex. You have a whole differentiated 3-year-old, 1-year-old, all your child parts asleep. You know how to do emotions and thoughts because your heart can't break. And you do. I got lucky with God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, and integrity. But really, I also got lucky because my mom taught me about equanimity. So when you have a smart brain, it's because you have a smart mind, because you have a smart body, because you have a gut that works well for your own inner child, safe haven, secure base. So you can self-regulate without another human being. This is why you have secure attachment. You're a whole self, and you own the one sense of self that you are, and then you share it. And that's what mindfully living and loving people do, whether they're spiritual, mystics, or not. Okay, so empowered feminines, you don't derail them because they can't be derailable. You can't break it. You can't break a heart that doesn't get broken, but simply gets sad or gets mad or gets... So again, we have a good relationship with the emotional plane. It's integrated, brain, bilateral, vertical, and overall. Okay, so we have our own embodiment of feminine, masculine. But you'll know if you're a feminine or masculine. And I'm going to read you something and I'm going to break it down with the brain in mind. Okay, so it's a Cherokee proverb, but I'm going to use it to indicate when you're left, the ego part is in friendship with the right, the feminine part. And so as Peter Levine would point out, you can contain sensations, images, affects, meanings, behaviors. And as Dr. Daniel Siegel would point out, then you can also in your prefrontal be able to be focusing your attention in the state of awareness, not be afraid of the unknown, so you can handle your window tolerance is expanded to window welcome to whatever's coming up. You don't go into clinical dissociation. Okay, so you're like, oh look, I have emotions and thoughts. I am dealing with emotions and thoughts. These are not irrefutable facts. Okay, so focused attention. In awareness, I have kind intention and or neutral, meaning, hey, let me look with the inner growth mindset, neutrality and duality. And with mindfulness and mindset, I'm exploring with ownership, observing, witnessing, narrating my own shit right now. I was doing that already as a kid, okay? Great, so that's what an empowered feminine does. With Claire's, doesn't change anything, and actually God informed me. Humility, integrity, follow Jesus, forgive, don't play me. Very straightforward. Lucifer, nowhere to be found. Just a bunch of people with trauma whenever you meet unkindness, rigidity, and anybody who wants to interrupt you and speak over you as you're doing stuff. And the cliche sentences and gender stereotypes are beyond a shadow of a doubt something that annoy an empowered feminine. Okay, so people who look for companionship, I know plenty of them. That's why I'm not talking about them today. They don't know how to be their self. So we know how to be our true selves, and we know what it means to be with another who is also a differentiated self. And therefore, when we link, as Dr. Daniel Siegel would point out, we come together as a we. And therefore, we expand two whole selves together. Can you imagine? And their frequency is ventral energy. So it's an amazing journey. Okay, so here's a Cherokee proverb. It's going to be modified, again, to use the word feminine and masculine. And right now, I want you to think of it as the integrated brain, your embodied brain, and I'm going to explain as I read it to you. a feminine's highest calling is to lead a masculine to their soul. You can call it the whole self if you want, okay? So as to unite them with source, which you could call the hard problem of consciousness. Or you could call it your higher self, because when you have a whole self, that's when you're going to be able to be leading with that prefrontal and have the well-being that all the smart trauma therapists talk about. Okay, so when you have, therefore, a securely attached feminine, right, the big body, then here what comes up can be talked about. Okay, now when instead we have a feminine, the lowest calling is to seduce, separate, and that's the masculine from the soul and leave them aimlessly wandering. This happens when you are not connected in a way of having the capacity to feel safely and to think safely, which if you have any type of wounds that are to the extent of creating, exiles, protectors, that's the IFS model, and or just charges that you're not going to be able to handle, structural dissociation, we only have child parts come up when there's triggers. Okay, so now we have a non-bilaterally integrated brain, and that's why they're aimlessly wandering with the desire for a companion, and then they're playing out their karma wheel, which is where the unfinished business that they could take to Terry Rio. Okay, so they're not being their whole self, they're pause selves, and they have solutions. They don't have to go there though. Okay, now here's for the masculine. A masculine's highest calling is to protect feminine, so that they are free to walk the earth unharmed. Okay, so the masculine is that which will be not only an integrated brain. So my integrated brain with my gut gives me input if there's physical danger. Implicit, explicit biases and all of the stuff that comes with Maria, I'm aware of and I don't project, but sometimes things can take place still, which is why we take awareness of those who are around us, and we will apologize if somebody says, I think you're rude. Now we'll know the difference of who we're engaging with, because functional adults, they don't do any of this shit. Anybody who's empowered doesn't bring to you a tone. They bring to you kindness, and they bring to you firm kindness, and really they're curious, open, accepting, and loving. So mentally, emotionally, and physically intelligent men, women, and theys is who IHP is for, which is why we don't come in at anything with any of... Anytime I get interrupted, I'm having a good time, because that's what it means to be a confident human being who isn't offended by anybody who chimes in, because you don't think of it as offensive, because you're not waiting to talk about, you don't need to talk, you're sharing a floor. Okay, so it's the part of where biologically rude people, for an empowered feminine, they've consistently been people who don't know how to have empowerment. So of course I'm okay with sharing. You learn how to share so that the 3-year-old can get it out of their system, and then you can also chime in if they want you to. So learning healthy self-worth, how to chit-chat, how to have a good time. Okay, that's what your mind does. Also, you don't actually close it off to anything. You continue to learn things. Okay, so that's the masculine's highest calling, to protect the body. So it obviously, with a good gut, you lead yourself to having healthy self-worth, empowering man, women, and their relationships, versus the ones who are insecure, who have unhealthy self-soothing patterns, and who, like Patrick Tian points out, continue dating people that treat them like pieces of shit, and they treat each other like pieces of shit. And like Terry Rio points out, they also don't know how to speak their truth. So they just grow old and bored together, because none of them are growing, passionate, intimate, because they don't have fierce actual conversations, which instead 5D feminines and masculines know all about. This is the beauty of authenticity and transparency, and being yourself with no shame, no blame, no fault, no revenge, no unhealthy self-soothing or self-regulating patterns, because you talk about shit. Okay, good. So it's very straightforward. We also don't use the divine timing of anything. Either you have emotional available, mentally available, physically available person, secure attached. That's how I'm going to be talking to you about women, men, and days, because this is what it is. Or you don't. And if they don't, you're going to know, because they're going to have some Cusco attitude, which is going to come out of nowhere, except for they don't know how to handle their actual self, because it's a pause self. And so the masculine's lowest calling is to ambush and force their way into the life of the feminine. Okay, so this is where, when we have those intrusive thoughts, and when you have a masculine, which is why masculines are boring to an empowered feminine, because all they have to do is inner critic, outer critic. They keep doing the same shit over and over and over again. But a human being who has intrusive thoughts, this is why therapy helps them, so they can get a hold of their own masculine, divine, masculine, feminine, okay, and the divine feminine. And now we're going to move to the other group, which is, as an empowered feminine, empowered masculines completely know how to be soft and protective, as we discussed. Empowered feminines know how to be nurturers and selective in a way that is the eyes that the masculines bring into the picture. And so that eye is, okay, yes, you want to nurture the entire herd, but you're going to want to spot those apples that you are noticing are rotten. Nurturer. Let's double check. If they're really rotten, well, you know that they're not going to be savable. So we want to make room for that which is savable. Doesn't mean you get rid of anything. Let me make that clear, because that's not in any person here on earth. This is not what this is. But a empowered duo will notice, okay, repeat patterns are repeat patterns. Okay, because we're talking personal development, we're talking building relationships, we're talking being able to build neighborhoods. Okay, on a entrepreneurship scale, it's a whole different scenario, and that's not where I'm going. And I'm not talking about social stuff, because I do personal development, self-help. So it's about being yourself. So this is why it's an intellectual and emotional inner exploration, and then it's exchange with another. So when you have empowered masculines and feminines, they build intimacy and passion because they know how to chit chat about things. Masculines don't get intrusive, feminines don't get intrusive. Masculines don't get over whatever bullshit attitude, which is like a rooster with a bunch of peacocks doing bullshit, which I consistently still see, and women don't get all catty feminine. So those energies that I see out there that are still imbalanced, the fancy woman and man in suit and anybody else who has gender stereotypes continue to allow you to actually think that that is what relationships. So people that are men, women, and theys who are healthy, they don't do gender stereotypes. They do, we are people, and they come in at a relationship with that which is intimacy, again, and passion. Okay, so the part about why integration and restorative embodiment, self-awareness, accountability, regulation is fun is that the ventral energy is empowering. Differentiated selves are empowering, and so you're not trying to build a companionship, you're building what is going to be a partnership. And that's the intimacy and passion that comes from those who are 5D feminines and masculines, thanks to being securely attached, healthy self-worth, men, women, and theys, some mystics, some not. And that's with our oversoul. And that is with a bunch of different parameters that we won't be talking about for the oversoul stuff. But maybe tomorrow, or maybe after tomorrow, we'll find out. In the meantime, it's really fun to let you all in on a fun fact that I love to love, and my baby, he loves to laugh, and he loves to dance, and he loves to live and learn and not cast stones. So when you are a person who has healthy self-worth and you're empowered, you actually can consistently build more of those relationships. So you don't get lost, and you don't get where you're looking at those who don't yet have the capacity to be their whole self as the people who stand the truth of what relationships look like. As a teenager, I already could tell you a lot of things that, again, we'll save for some other time, but that I noticed were inconsistencies, like my friends leaving their friends behind just because they got into a relationship. As we got older, people talking about things in a certain way and then treating each other like parents. And I'm like, what is this? This doesn't make any sense. Why are you doing this? What are you asking for permission? That's, and what about, changing? No, that we can want to be curious, adapt to those things. We've all done it. But as you get older, you are a whole sense of self. You have yourself, and you're presenting who you are by choosing what you like and what you don't like, and then sharing that. So you welcome all of your parts as whole, and if you stay whole, then you're sharing that as yourself, and the same thing goes with another. So it's not hiding. We don't shame any of the parts. We talk and we actively bring our A game. That's the other part about the integrated brain and restorative embodiment, self-aware, accountable, regulating people, is that tapping into higher emotional, mental, and physical intelligence is really straightforward and fun. So you're going to be around more differentiated selves. Also because those who don't like the ventral energy, they have an active reaction to it. It's called because they don't feel neutrality or positivity as safe. It triggers their fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, because their 0-1-year-old and their 3 to 7-year-old didn't get that subconscious, healthy self-regulation. So they only know, unfortunately, fear and threat, and they play out that, which is where if they go to good therapy, they can get out of it. If they follow men and women in suits that tell them not to, well, there's that. And that's not, again, Lucifer. It's dysregulated, modulated embodiment, people who don't have balance within their own divine feminine and their masculine and their divine masculine. So they have non-bilateral integration. And then they have maladaptive patterns of behavior, drinking, drugging, fucking, and everything and beyond. Inner critic, outer critic. So they have a lot of things that go on here. And they make up a bunch of stories. And then they got groups. And the 3D, 4D is full of them. And that's why they're having a good time. And so in the meantime, they have a good time. 5D Collective has a good time. But the difference is we get to build. I love to love, and our babies, they love to laugh, and they love to learn, and they love to expand, and they love to not cast stones, and therefore they love a pocket full of stars, especially in a starless night, so that we can brighten up the skies. We'll be back with more. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.